and a veteran of the famed SDNY in New York. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here, as usual.
Hey, that's the attitude we like. Several developments here, Nick, but this isn't the first time that people in government accused of some kind of misconduct rush to claim, hey, I was just doing my government job. There are times where that can work. It certainly can shut down certain types of inquiries. Walk us through what it means that it appears not to be working, as far as the DOJ is concerned, for Congressman Brooks.
Well, I think the best way to look at this is to compare it to the Jean Carroll situation, where the government, the Department of Justice, decided that it would continue to represent Donald Trump in that particular suit. I mean, there is a very distinct policy issue here. A president of the United States gets sued all the time. And Jean Carroll, may have a viable suit. It may be legitimate. It may not be. We can't say for sure that this rape actually happened. But it's something that a public official is subject to all the time. And I think the Department of Justice viewed it as such that they didn't want to get into making a decision on the merits of the case because a president is sued for all kinds of crazy things all of the time. On the other hand, in this particular case, there is no question that what Congressman Brooks was doing was inciting the crowd to basically storm the Capitol. He used the word blood. He used the word the Patriots. He used the word kicking ass. I mean, there isn't any doubt in anybody's mind, particularly when you put that in the context of what Donald Trump said and what Rudy Giuliani said about trial by combat. I mean, when you put all of these people together in terms of what they were saying to this crowd, they were basically inciting them to go up to the Capitol and riot the place. It's exactly what they did. What they said is what you expected to be the end result. Obviously, the Department of Justice is not going to defend somebody who's trying to overthrow the United States government. I mean, that in itself seems to me to be a pretty common sense notion. That if someone came at you, tried to murder you and missed and just shot you in the arm, you're not going to fund his legal battle. You're not going to give him lawyers so he can defend himself against you when you're going to sue him for doing that. Well, it's the same thing here. I mean, this is the most extreme case of somebody being involved in an insurrection to overthrow the government, to stop our constitutional process of counting the votes for president because they didn't like who was elected. So under these circumstances, it would have been absolutely crazy in the extreme for the Department of Justice to represent Congressman Brooks.
And so what does he face in court now?
Well, I think what he's going to face is depositions. That's going to be the start of this. There's going to be discovery. He's going to be deposed. Donald Trump will be deposed. Rudy Giuliani will be deposed. And they don't really have much of a defense here. And I think that the more they can dig into the evidence showing that Trump, Giuliani, Brooks knew that these people had come up, knew that these people were looking for a fight, the more they can show that, the more they can show that what they were doing was inciting this riot. I mean, I am totally convinced that once they start digging into phone records, they find out who these people were meeting with. If Congressman Brooks was meeting with, the 3%ers or the Proud Boys, he's going to have a hard time trying to argue that he was doing this in his duty as a congressman. I mean, your duty as a congressman is not to try and overthrow the Congress and stop their regular business. I mean, that is just not going to fly well with a jury in the District of Columbia.
Yeah, it's one of the dumber things I've heard, and, I do this for a living, so I hear all kinds of stuff, Nick. But the Brooks defense is like someone accused of embezzling from their own bank and saying that's part of my official duties, which just brings you back to, no, you're accused of embezzlement, which is abdicating your duties to steal for yourself. As you say, he's not defending the Congress, he's trying to overthrow it. I did want to get your view on the other issue I mentioned with Neil Katyal, which relates as well to these open probes, that there is mounting pressure on different members of the administration to have to testify. The DOJ, they're also not giving, for example, former acting Attorney General Rosen any kind of privilege because they don't deem a potential coup as the kind of machinations that are privileged. What else could we learn about that? Because it seems that the fact that this all didn't work has also colored some people's perspective, even though we all know that attempted murder is bad, as you just alluded to. And so the fact that Donald Trump reportedly was not only doing the outside game of the rally, if you will, and the insurrection, but the inside game of trying to get people inside the government to pull off a coup. He just didn't succeed.
Right, but I think what we're going to find is people coming in with all kinds of firsthand conversations with Donald Trump or people around Donald Trump that are going to put together a jigsaw puzzle of putting in all these pieces that show exactly what Donald Trump was doing minute by minute, day by day, with respect to what occurred right from the beginning when he called people in, when he encouraged people to show up in Washington, to this Stop the Steal rally, which was really geared towards trying to stop a constitutional process of counting votes for the president of the United States. I think that once you have those people and they've got to testify truthfully, you're going to get a lot of evidence that could wind up turning into ultimately a criminal case against Donald Trump, Congressman Brooks, and Rudy Giuliani. That's what I think is the ultimate end game here. Once you put all of these pieces together, particularly when you don't have the privilege to hide behind. And that's pretty classic. I mean, the idea that you can claim privilege when the conversations were essentially in furtherance of criminal activity, in this case, to overthrow the government. I don't think that there's any question that people are going to be forced to testify, and the only privilege they have is to assert their Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination.
All clearly put. Nick Ackerman, thank you as always for the legal insights. When we come back, we're looking at this pillar of Biden's agenda, the jobs and infrastructure.